So the question is, what has changed in the AAP government ever since 2015 till 2022 in the field of education? Am I right? All right. So the two main changes that I see is, number one, the introduction of dignity into the whole space. So dignity for students, dignity for teachers and the parents. That is the one biggest thing. The second thing is treating everyone like family, encouraging teachers, training teachers, as well as head of schools to treat the children as their own. In many cases, there are instances where principals, their own children have studied from the same school, right? So these kinds of things have essentially made our leadership and our officers, everyone feel that they're a part of team education. So as part of that, we have leveraged the best practices from all over the world, not just India. We have leveraged our network with various NGOs across the country, and we've helped enabled changes through them at a large scale here. So there are 18 lakh school children that are served under 1,034 schools. There are many tiers of schools, and we are sitting in a school which is at the lowest tier, which is a general tier where there's no entry barrier for the student. Other schools, there is like a marks based barrier, or there is an entrance exam based barrier, but this one is one which is called Sarvodaya, which means anyone is allowed to come. Anyone whose the preference is given to the local 5-kilometer radius area, and any child, whether they're of any ability, special or not, or general, everyone's welcome. There is not a single rupee that is taken from the children in each of these schools. There is no school fees, there is no fees for uniform, books, stationery. There are no school buses required because the students come from the local area, but any facility that's needed for the children, the school is provided. Once you're on the rolls, you're basically the school's responsibility. One thing that's very important to consider is that all this cannot be done without money, right? And the proper use of that money. So one thing I want to touch upon is the infrastructure investment. One thing that happened right after the government came into power was that 26% of Delhi government GDP was allocated exclusively for education. No questions asked. It was a unanimously passed bill, and is still in place today. The national average is around 10 to 12%. We are at 26, the highest in any state across the country. Then comes the use of that money. It's not enough just to allocate, right? You also have to do something called delivery of outcomes. So we have a separate system in Delhi government called the outcome budget, where we measure not just the outlay and the output of any policy, but also the outcome. For example, if I spend X amount of money on buying 10 computers for a school, I'm not going to just say, okay, the output is we have 10 computers. I'm going to measure where is the increase in the IT literacy levels of those students, right? So that's the outcome. So we, our education team comprising of everybody, including Manish Sisodia himself, had taken many tours of every school for 3-4 years, making sure each of the improvements, renovation or rebuilding, was done up to code, was done up to standard, and was done safely and with dignity for all people involved. There were so many times where they were just, they was frustrated, there was tension, but nobody gave up, and the infrastructure was brought into place. The teachers were sent across abroad to get them exposure and training on all kinds of pedagogies. Then they were also brought back in, and sort of using this network called the mentor-teacher concept, which we took from one of the NGOs. We set up our own teacher development coordinators, our mentor teachers, so that each teacher also felt supported that, you know what, I'm not going to get overloaded because there's so much expectation. Each teacher has been trained on how to handle their stuff. Parents. The second part that I wanted to cover is that how to make sure that apart from the education team, who should be there to measure, who is there to guard the guards, right? So for that, we enabled and empowered parents to be stakeholders in this process by establishing something called a localized school management committee. We have set up district level teams. Delhi has 11 districts. So we have 11 districts have as many school management committees as many schools there are. So each school has now got a parents governing body, which is empowered not just legally but also financially to make improvements in that school. And work with the principal to assist the principal in making sure those improvements happen. Anything that is falling short is getting catered to. For example, there was a time when the board exams were approaching and the biology teacher of the school fell sick, and very sick, could not do. and there was a crisis because the students were saying, well, we need a teacher. That's where the SMC came in. The parents found one of the ex-retired teachers in the community who came in gladly, and he came in and helped the school students out, and those students got good marks. So that's an example of how this engagement and outreach was done. Many principals reached out to the local law enforcement and made sure that the students met with those law enforcement guys. So it became, rather than previously it was more of a confrontational relationship between the two. It's now become a relationship where the children call the police wala's uncle, right? Fire brigade, everybody. So our students have been given exposure to the best of the best in terms of learning, in terms of education, and as you can see, the infrastructure, not a single child is being left behind in terms of support. One more facet that's also important to consider is the academics. When the school system started, Delhi government schools mostly started year 6. They don't start at year 1. Year 1 to 5 is what is handled by the MCD schools. It's a feeder school. But the level of the academic ability of the children was so bad